Jan Kovalik says, Ben really needs a haircut. I've got anxiety from watching that hair. Sorry. Welcome to episode 7 of Ben and Dan Talk About. Today we're going to talk about an episode called Masks from Star Trek The Next Generation. Known often as the one of the poorer episodes of the show and of the franchise in general.
Bit of a clunker.
The reason we decided to watch this episode, I should say, is that we've been hating on New Trek a lot in some of our videos. Star Trek Picard, which has a very bad problem with exposition. I thought that was very bad editing, and they do that a couple times. Why was Maddox involved in this show at all?
I don't know.
If I were in charge, I would say Alex Kurtzman, Kristen Bear, Akiva Goldsman, Michael Chabon, and anyone else who's written on Star Trek Discovery or Picard have no business writing for Star Trek. Star Trek Picard f***ing sucks. Yeah, I'm not crazy. I'm saving my alcohol consumption for when we watch Star Trek Discovery, though. Yes, badly written, badly paced. And then they had this really weird scene where Picard and, what was her name? I don't even remember her name anymore because she was only in like the first 2 episodes. But as it went on, the writing just really lost me. Yeah, none of this shit makes any sense. Episode 5 broke me. The people that created those garbage piles are still in charge of this. I still don't trust them. Written by Alex Kurtzman, Kirsten Beer,
You know what though?
and Akiva Goldsman. The 3
Well, is it going to be?
game. We thought we'd shake things up and kind of talk about some of the clunkers from old Trek, because there's like something like 700 episodes of old Trek as it's known. And so there's bound to be some clunkers there. So,
Seemed apropos of the times.
seemed apropos, absolutely.
And joining us today are a couple of special guests.
Because we're refraining from hating on New Trek, we have 2 very special guests that we're honored to have with us. We have Alex Kurtzman down here, who's the current franchise runner of Star Trek at CBS All Access. And just behind me here, we actually have Michael Chabon, who is the showrunner of Star Trek Picard, Season 1, which, as you all know, I enjoyed quite a bit, as well as Dan. So thanks for being here with us, guys, and we hope to get to hear some interesting insight from you guys on your experiences with Star Trek and everything. I do have one question actually. Michael Chabon, are you planning at all on season 2 of Star Trek Picard, focusing on everyone getting mad at Picard for being a synthetic now, as opposed to just being a general failure like they were getting mad at him before? And do you have any explanation for why Romulans hated cyberneticists and hated synthetic life forms, except for the fact that they were referenced so often in old Trek?
We don't have androids or AIs. We don't study cybernetics.
I know a host of Romulan cyberneticists that would love to be this close to you.
Do you have anything to say about that? No? Nothing? What about you, Alex Kurtzman? I guess they don't have much to say on those matters. Dan, if you have any questions for them at all, just feel free to ask.
So let them get warmed up. Yeah. They're a little shy. A
little shy. Alex Kurtzman, what do you have to say about the fact that Klingons have a cultural norm of shaving their heads before war in Star Trek Discovery, but that is not referenced anywhere else in the Star Trek franchise whatsoever? Do you have anything that you want to say about that, or maybe comment? I mean, as people are watching, the people want to hear. They love Star Trek. Maybe he's still getting his wardrobe together. I don't know. Well, I'm sure we'll get their attention at some point.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there at some point.
The Masks.
The Masks. So this is a season 7 episode of the Next Generation. Season 7 has a bit more clunkers.
Some of the best episodes.
Some of the best clunkers out there. This is something we should, I think, briefly discuss before we get into the episode. A lot of old Star Trek episodes that are clunkers are bad in a really fun way, right? And I think this episode kind of falls into that camp. Speaking of camps, very campy, sometimes very, very cheesy plot lines, or special effects, or just bad acting in general. But old Trek, like, it wasn't ever like necessarily that just the whole tone of the show was off, but just that the shit was comical, right?
Oh.
You got the Yangs and the Cones.
Oh God, that's
one of the worst episodes of.
Well, that's a good
TOS.
episode up until the big reveal at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You've got this. You've got the Scottish weird sex episode of the Next Generation. Sub Rosa.
Sub Rosa.
Yep. Sub Rosa.
Surfer Rosa.
It's a good album. And so some of these old episodes, and I think both of us, like, part of what we love about Star Trek is the campiness.
Oh God, yeah.
If you have a problem with campiness, most people that have that problem can't really get into Star Trek, it seems like. Or at least the old Trek, like Next Generation or the original series, you know.
But yeah. Maybe that is something that's kind of missing out of the new Star Trek.
I think
It's not
100%. Well, that's why a lot of people love the Orville. I still have to check that show out, but a lot of people love it because it's got that element of camp, down to like the color palette and the costume decisions and all that. So, but this episode, we chose it like we were saying because it's viewed as a bad episode, and I remember watching it mainly when I was a kid, younger, and I actually really liked it back then. I was probably like 10 or 11. And interestingly enough, upon this second viewing of it, I still liked it quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's not as bad, I think, as a lot of people make it out to be.
No, it falls short, like, on some levels of the execution, but on an overall theme and, story idea, and just kind of how well it fits in the Star Trek universe, it's actually shooting for a pretty good episode. I think it doesn't quite hit the mark in the way it came out, but you can tell where it's coming from.
So thematically, you've got this old structure that's nestled into an 86 million year old comet, which is off the bat very Star Trek, with the ancient civilization that somehow has technology that remains active. That's one thing I always love in Star Trek is it's like an 86 million year old structure that's still apparently just fully functional, or they always find like a wrecked starship and like, let's see what the power system says. But so they have this old structure that is sending out this signal to the Enterprise and starts replacing items in the Enterprise with sort of historical artifacts, objects from that ancient civilization, right?
Yeah. In a lot of ways, it seems like an echo of the Inner Light to me in some ways. You've got because I don't know, we're left at the end of the episode where Starfleet is going to research more about the artifact, and so we don't really know kind of the purpose or intent behind this structure, but it is some ancient civilization in some way trying to make some sort of contact or
leave some sort of
alive
mark,
some sort of level of its culture, of its existence.
You're right about that, and that's one thing that I love about a lot of Star Trek episodes is that they're not necessarily about a villain. They're about exploring an ancient civilization and maybe differences in culture, right, between the two. I mean, like the Inner Light, there's not really an antagonist in that episode.
No.
The antagonism is the probe's hold on Picard and the fact that his crew doesn't know what's affecting him, and I guess the fact that he lives like 40 years. The antagonist in this episode, I mean, there is an antagonist in Sokka.
Oh, yes.
Technically, that could be considered, but even then, she never like actually kills anyone on the Enterprise, and never,
Which is a really fun thing. It seems to me it's like Star Trek's kind of future alien Greek theater. You've got Masaka is a feminine form, but they're playing the role of the sun god. And everyone is fearful of Masaka. They're not afraid of Koganu, the representation of the moon, which like is a masculine form, which I feel like kind of is like opposite roles that you would see in like ancient Greek mythology. You've got Helios, male figure, god of the sun, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like it really feels like, I mean, well, we know what's his name?
Corgano?
No, who created Star Trek?
That is staying in this video 100%. His name was George Lucas.
So anyways, Lucas boy.
So Lucas, when he created Star Trek.
Oh, Alex Kurtzman, when he created Star Trek.
Yeah. He's right here. We could ask him.
Well, he's like a huge Shakespeare fan. Just from Star Trek, you can tell.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in there's like levels of fandom of just like ancient Greek theater, right? And that, I mean, even down to the clay masks, like it's 100% like where they're acting out like.
And Data's almost, I don't know that he would necessarily be like the chorus, but like, yeah, there are elements of the episode that do feel like almost kind of an ancient Greek play. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing is like the resolution at the end to stop the kind of destruction of the Enterprise is Picard having to engage in the myth, taking on the role of Koganu and getting Mr. Mugatu to go to sleep.
Right, exactly, yeah. So, let's just briefly summarize the plot of the episode. You've got that first scene with Troy talking to the kid about sculpting, right? Telling him to sculpt by feeling and not by technique.
What's really funny though is I thought to myself when I was watching this, this is somewhat a teacher I would hate in school.
Oh, did you think that? Yeah, because I had that same thought too. It's almost like you read my notes on the matter before commenting on it. Where are your doodles, by the way? You didn't make any doodles for this episode.
I was too busy falling asleep in the first watch.
Yeah, he was sleepy boy. So Troy's talking to that kid, and yes, like my notes say, I don't know, that conversation about sculpting by feeling, that's a conversation I would hate to have in school. I'd be like, fuck off and let me sculpt what I want.
Let me make my bird.
Yep. Yeah. But then Data is making the perfect pad. And I love these little side scenes with Data. Anytime that we explore his character in this regard, it's just gold. Because he's just making the most boring object you can think of in the 24th century, right? But then they encounter this rogue comet, and what I love is when they scan the rogue comet, you get this signature white whoosh in Star Trek, which happens anytime there's like something downloaded onto the Enterprise computer or something where something has infected their system. There's always just this white whoosh that happens across the screen and on the sound. And so that happens, and then that's basically when they start getting invaded.
Yeah.
With these artifacts. And then Data starts making the mask, right? That he has at the end of the episode. And that same student starts reporting computer errors because they start seeing the archeological signs, right?
Yeah, like little like Mayan hieroglyphs or something.
Yeah, floating above the LCARs. And then the symbols start showing up in engineering, right? And that's when they decide to investigate the comet itself, and they melt away all the ice, reveal this building floating in space below it. And then that's where more objects start showing up in everyone's quarters in the ready room, and Data starts exhibiting more and more unusual behavior until he eventually gets possessed by all of those characters. And this is something that we were talking a little bit about. One area where the episode might fall short is it relies, I think a little too much on Brent Spiner. Anytime you can have Brent Spiner acting outside of the realm of Data, he's great usually, unless you have him just over and over recreating Soong relatives and shit. But that's another topic altogether, right? Alex Kurtzman, right? Michael Chabon. Do you have anything to say about that? Looks like they're still pretty quiet on the matter.
Comment.
But you had some thoughts on this.
Yeah, this is somewhere I was mentioning earlier. Is just maybe this is just a personal thing, but anytime there's any movie or show where a character is having to, embody like multiple personalities inside of one person, I just see the actor doing just different voices. Like and I'm never sold on it. Like there was that movie a couple years ago, I think it was like called Split or something. And I think it got actually good marks. I never saw it, but I couldn't get past the trailers where you're just seeing the one guy doing all these different like faces and voices. And it's just, it just always looks too ridiculous to me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It doesn't work here, especially because you have so many different like interpretations of this culture and so many kind of different voices that Data does, but like they just kind of sound like lore. And they kind of just, I don't know that they work completely. Overall.
So I think it loses a little bit. We've got, it gives us some great moments where, we've got,
Yeah, he's on the
he's doing
engineering
his
table.
Little poses or whatever.
Yep, the pool table in engineering.
Yeah.
That's very, that feels almost very Shatner-esque.
Well, that's the thing, like, a lot of campiness in this episode. But kind of getting back to the artifacts that start appearing in the glyphs that we start seeing, this is kind of something I always really liked about Star Trek, is that you'll have even like Federation technology where it might be something that actually looks like comically like simple or like like a something that might look a little bit like a child's toy or like comically simple, but maybe it is just a representation of something that would be so futuristic beyond what we might be able to recognize. The functionality of something.
It's kind of like that prop that they have in Star Trek Picard where the person just uses their imagination and it does anything they want. Is that kind of a weird plot device, wouldn't you say, Michael Chabon? I don't know that they like us that much.
We got to talk a little nicer to them.
I guess so.
Hey, did you have any thoughts about that?
Did you have any thoughts about that, Alex Kurtzman? Your facial hair looks really great. I don't know. It's almost like we're just like too toxic for them or something. Quite concerning. But yeah, and then you like we were saying earlier, have these great explorations of like myth and mythology within this civilization. With Picard assuming the role of Corgano. One key difference between this and a lot of other shows, the climax is literally just a conversation between the two of them and them almost playing out this myth in real time.
Yeah, Picard is rejected by Mugatu until he puts on, he dons.
Go away!
Starship.
Go away! Yeah.
Yeah. He dons the costume and he begins,
This episode could have gone anywhere where Misaka takes anyone hostage, starts killing crew members, but you don't actually hear about any crew members dying.
Yeah, I don't think anyone died in the episode.
No. And so I feel like it had an opportunity to get kind of really, really cheesy and dumb.
Yeah, totally.
But it never did. It kind of always stayed within these certain confines. One aspect that I think is a little silly is just the objects getting replaced in the Enterprise and then everything getting reverted back at the end.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of episodes where they just have to have that reset, but like it did start to get a little bit like, okay, so they're replacing everything on the Enterprise and Worf's like, we have like 20 minutes until the end. There's nothing left for the Enterprise. And nobody has gotten hurt so far or like transformed into anything.
Right, only been the inorganic materials.
The very, very destructive technology that this race has, that it can just take matter like that and just reorganize it and then put it back, you know? So that's one thing that I was always like, you know, don't really agree with that.
Yeah. There's a lot though that really doesn't maybe get like fleshed out as to like, was this simply a communication error? Was this like, I mean, was this a way of like establishing contact for species, of like having to live through the shared mythology, like almost you know, Darmok and Janad at Talagras.
Darmok and Jalad. Yep.
Yeah.
Shaka. When the walls fell.
Like, is this just like their way of communicating even?
Yeah.
Or is this some sort of malfunction where they're hung up? Like, were they ever hung up? Is this just the theater? Is this communication? Is this just ritual? Like, we don't really get that fleshed out. So we just kind of have to wonder or guess.
Could be an interesting angle, you know, because it's like an 87 million year old question that like almost never gets answered completely, which could be cool. My personal favorite scene of the episode is when Data asks Geordi if what it feels like for someone to lose their mind.
Geordi, what does it feel like when a person is losing his mind?
Yeah, come on, you're scaring me now. What's going on?
And he's
that's a great scene.
Yeah, that's a really creepy and well done. Star Trek does creepy shit like that pretty well. And Brent Spiner acts that part really well, I think, too. And so that's my personal favorite scene. It's interesting to think, though, that I liked this when I was a kid, whereas I didn't like DS9's The Emissary as much, which also dealt with like prophet and mythology. I wonder if I don't know, I wonder if it has to do with just the sort of very, very vibrant nature of this episode, like everything getting replaced on the Enterprise with like artifacts and shit and all the masks and stuff. I don't know.
Well, I didn't think I didn't like it at all, or would have thought it would be considered one of the worst episodes. The first time I watched it was only maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I can definitely like see it, rewatching it, like, oh yeah, I get why a lot of people don't like this.
It's got nothing on like Sub Rosa,
the
Scottish episode, or some of the season 1 episodes, like Code of
Definitely
Honor.
have to do those.
That one's pretty awful. It's the one where Tasha gets kidnapped by a race of warriors who all happen to be black. And like
Jesus.
they all have a primitive. It's like pretty bad.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's a pretty bad episode. So
Should do that one.
we should do that. Well, there's a lot of clunkers that we can choose from. There's the Tom Paris Janeway episode where they turn into space fish after
I
they
thought
go
it
warp
was
10.
uh,
Salamander things.
yeah,
Weird
lizard
fucking. It's been a long time since I've seen that one too.
Yeah.
Some Enterprise episodes that are clunkers. There's a lot we can choose from.
TOS.
Or we could just watch all of Star Trek Discovery and all of Star Trek Picard. Hey, where'd they go? Oh shit, we lost Alex Kurtzman and Michael Chabon. Damn it. Guess we just couldn't resist.
It's too hard.
Yeah. All right. That's all for now. Don't forget to wear a mask.
I lost my.
Where's the fuck is your mask?